Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Talk Junkies. We got Jesse in the house, Johnny in the house, and we have the pleasure of bringing Alan on to the show. Alan, what's going on, man?
Hey, yeah, I'm doing very well, thanks. Thank you very much for having me today.
No, thanks for joining the podcast. Today's going to be a really good podcast. I was on Reddit, and I had just posted in a technology blog, and Alan had responded, man, so thank you for joining, actually. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So mid-30s, live in Vancouver, Canada. I am a professional engineer, management consultant by trade. About 3 years ago, my twins were born, boy, girl, and I switched over to being a full-time dad. Fortunate for the opportunity. It was a decision that was best for our family, and we've since had a third child. He's 1.5 now. So I've got a 3.5-year-old twins and a 1.5-year-old full-time dad. Still do my engineering part-time. It's largely been in the field of operations research, so efficiency, bottlenecks, process improvement, that type of thing, time, rather than design engineering. So I don't design bridges or buildings or machines, right? Just in terms of my discipline. But in these last few years, I have started to grow my own consultancy called Sentient Future Consulting, and it's applying a lot of the same ideas and methodology around in operations research for like improving efficiencies and the like, but applying it to the problem of regret, applying it to the opportunity of fulfillment in life, and to approach those fields in a more structured and a more quantitative way to ultimately see if I can save people from spending time in ways that they regret, or help them spend time in ways that are consistent with what it is that they value. In doing that, I've been able to save now, I think, 77.8 years of time in other people's lives, according to them. And so I see regret as this waste, this form of suffering that unfortunately we all experience. But it's such a huge opportunity, I think, and there are some impending threats, which I'm sure we'll talk about, one of which is the attention economy. And I would just really like to spread the word in terms of there are ways you can get to know yourself extremely well in a clear and actionable way. And it is required combining a few different disciplines. But I think in doing that, we save ourselves and the people that we love from spending time in a way that we ultimately regret. And that's just, it's hard, right, to look in someone's eyes and see regret. And so I don't want to see that in anyone's eyes, never mind someone else, who I care about.
So where do you get a lot of this regret from, or from all the people that you've had interactions with? Where does a lot of this regret? Is a lot of it technology, or is it more so something else?
So I would say most of the time it fits into, I guess, as far as past regrets are concerned. I want to make a distinction, I guess, between past ones and future ones. But the past regrets tend to focus around, relationships, ways people have maybe treated others that they have had family members or loved ones, money as well, ways that perhaps people have spent their money, or careers, career directions they've chosen possibly for the wrong reasons, and then they look back on that decade or so and realize maybe they could have done something differently or better, or the like. So I mean, it stems from a lot of the same categories, but one of the ways I look at regret is, it's when we make decisions or we spend time in ways that are not in line with what we value. And there's so little discussion, I think, in the public school system and the like around identifying what it is that you value as an individual. Never mind promoting that it's important or trying to quantify it, trying to understand how much we care about those different aspects of life in relative terms or in proportional terms. When you do that, you can start applying it. And that's really the perspective, I guess, the approach that I'm bringing to the table.
Are you as an individual trying to optimize basically the human experience? Like you come in,
yeah.
So that's basically that. Where at a point do you ever feel like maybe difficulty and struggle like developmental points somewhere?
Absolutely. So, I mean, a lot of these ideas and what we're born out of my own need, right? We're born out of my own experience and reflecting on my life. We can go into details if you like, but recognizing that I hadn't always had a plan for how I wanted to spend my time. I didn't always have a good idea of who I thought I was at the time or acted consistently with it. And so having sorted some of that out, having to find some of that for myself, having, looked forward and trying to live in a way that is more consistent with what I want to do and what's right for the people that that I interact with, both my family members and the general public, because I just generally care about people. I found in doing that there were some ideas, some messages, some approaches that ended up being really useful for other people too. And so I'm just trying to share some of those ideas in hopes that people just lead better lives according to their own standards. I have no intent whatsoever, in imparting my own values or what I care about, and assuming that somebody else should too. It's how do you figure out what you care about and live accordingly.
So where does technology play a role in what you've discovered with all the research that you've done within your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So technology is really interesting, right? I mean, I think technology was initially born out of needs to be extensions of ourselves, whether that was a rock to use for making tools or preparing food as opposed to using our hands, whatever the case might be. It was always sort of this extension of ourselves. But somewhere along the way, and I'm not saying this is the case everywhere, but I think it's becoming increasingly the case, we've possibly lost the underlying reason why we might be using that technology, right? If technology is going to be an extension of ourselves, well, then we better know who we are as ourselves first, right? And what it is that fulfills us, right? Which I argue is our end game. Our end game for any of us is living a fulfilled life. The definition of that just differs by person. But when we know what we want to do and why we want to do it, then it's much easier to figure out what technologies to apply to do it better, right? I think very often it's tempting, for a lot of design reasons and the like too, to just pick up technology for the sake of it. It's cool, it's attractive, it's flashy. And if we're not careful, right, and this is partly to do with the attention economy too, we can get consumed by the technology and not necessarily use it for ways that are fulfilling to us or useful for those we care about. So I think we need to do the self work first, and then once we've done that, the technology I think can has a much higher return for us.
That's the one thing I would be worried about is it's a super noble goal, but that's got to be really difficult for two reasons. One, like you said earlier, every person's different. So every person's version of fulfillment in their life is going to be different, and that's got to be hard to quantify and figure out on an individual basis. So there's your first big speed bump in the road. The other thing is that unfortunately the world we live in, not to be all negative, but the world we live in, we do use technology for, like you talked about, the attention problem and attention span and so on and so forth, but entertainment, and then also, not to get all conspiracy because that's really not what this is. That's not what I'm trying to say. But you have, man, everything in the world kind of stems back to money for a lot of people. And when you have corporations creating apps and Facebook and so on and so forth that are specifically designed to either sell you a product or sell your information as a product, and that's all they're designed for so that they can make the money, that's going to be real hard to use technology as a tool when the technology presented to you is not even in the form of a tool. They're not giving you it to use as a tool. They're giving it to you, honestly, as advertisement to either sell you or sell you something.
It's true, right? And so one of the key ways I believe we need to kind of get around this societally isn't at a system level, because at a system level, obviously there are all of these organizations and the like, and honestly, I can't fault the organizations for acting on what they believe is in their best interest. And then that's kind of the interesting thing. I think the solution is more so culturally. The solution is more so, as individuals, knowing what we care about deeply and having such conviction around it, then in the short term, acting towards that, building that, whether it's a career, whether it's a relationship, whether it's hobbies, whatever the case might be, friendships. But knowing ourselves so deeply, knowing our why so clearly, that in the short term, acting towards that is more attractive than what others would have us do. I think it's the only way to circumvent or to sort of get around temptation, is to have something that we care about more.
That's a good point.
Because the rest of it is designed to hack our attention. So we just need to be conscious, aware of it, and when we know ourselves so well, I think that allows us to identify when something coming our way isn't going to fulfill ourselves, or it isn't going to serve that end or that mission.
And that's the goal of your. I can't remember what it's called. I'm sorry. You want to say it one more time?
Oh, no worries. So my life's work, I put it into a diagram. It's called sentient process network theory. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's a map of the human condition. And the method, I guess, I use to help people is to, at a high level, identify or define and weight what it is that they value, so that they can make decisions that are in line with what they value, which are effectively regret-proof decisions, but that they can also use the ratios of how much they value different things as a comparison point against how it is they spend their time, right? And what could they spend their time on more that is intrinsically motivating, that is fulfilling for them.
That's got to be hard to do. I mean, I'm sure your background in engineering and figuring that. I'm just thinking for myself. I'm like, man, how would I figure that out for an individual? Like, how would I be able to help them? And obviously, that's not my life goal. So obviously, I would have a harder time with it than you would, Alan. But I can't even fathom trying to talk to someone and figure out how to streamline their life and get them. Well, not even streamline their life. That's a bad example. But to get them to figure out what fulfills them, because I don't even know for myself. Like sometimes, some days I do, some days I don't. But in general,
and I mean, if you guys want to take the conversation this direction, it doesn't take very long to explain the process, and it's something that can, I think, be done 80 to 90% ourselves. Kind of the 80-20 rule here, right? So I can kind of share how I do it. It's a fairly simple approach, but it's just one that I haven't seen thought of, because you kind of only reach it when you have had exposure from a few different disciplines. Mm-hmm. So it kind of works like this. So one of the first questions I ask, and first of all, like when I ask the question, what do you value? Sorry, that's sort of the first question. So few people have a defined answer. I didn't have a defined answer, right? And we don't get asked that question as young people. And as we get into adulthood, we think it becomes less practical to ask that question, or we fear asking those types of questions because we fear regret as opposed to recognizing it and then doing something about it. But so I guide people, I guess, through the question of what do they value. Now, if someone has no clue where to start, the way that I normally ask them to look at it is, okay, well, reflect on the different types of experiences you've had in your life so far, the relationships you've had, friends, loved ones, family. What kind of activities have you been in? What kind of education or educational experiences have you had? Have you traveled much? And then look at each of those things. Maybe it's a couple dozen, and types of experiences, and reflect on what you have enjoyed and what you've not enjoyed about each. Then look across those several dozen types of experiences and ask yourself, what do I seem to have enjoyed that pops up in several of these areas in my life? And those are usually a pretty good indicator for a good start for what it is that you value in life. There is a distinction I'll quickly make. So one of the conversations, I guess, that's sort of traditionally been had is, what are your personal values? When we think personal values or corporate values, we think things that are more like character traits like honesty or resilience, right? And those are good, but they're just not the whole picture. So when I say, what do you value? It's more so, the different aspects of life. So, what kinds of, do you value your friendships? Do you value your significant other? Do you value your family? Do you value traveling? Do you value personal development, professional development? Do you value travel, if I haven't already said that? Do you value your health, whether that be physical, mental, or spiritual, right? And so there's an infinite number of categories, and you alone get to decide what categories are kind of your top 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. It doesn't matter how many or kind of meet your top list. But that list is unique to you, right? And especially when you start thinking about their relative importance to you. So let's say, for the sake of argument, you narrow it down to, okay, these are my top 5. It's not to say that I don't value items 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Of course you do, right? You value everything to a certain degree. But the point is, maybe these top 5 are just disproportionately more important to you in your life, right? So they're just, for practicality, let's deal with those top 5. Again, it could be 6, it could be 3. It doesn't really matter how many. So if you have your top 5 different things in life that you just find intrinsically enjoyable, then the next question is, well, what if I've got 2 choices in front of me and one satisfies several of these? values and the other satisfies these other values. How do I break the tie? How do I know which one is more important to me? And that's where weighting our values becomes really important. And the approach I hadn't yet seen before kind of goes like this. So if you can imagine a standard week, you've got 168 hours in a week. If you subtract off 8 hours a night, roughly, for sleep, you're left with 112 hours. Now, just to make the math easier, let's imagine 100 waking hours per week, right? If you have 100 waking hours per week, and let's say you had no other responsibilities, and you could only spend time on one of those 5 aspects of life that you valued at a given time. Maybe it was with a loved one or personal development or exercise, whatever the case might be. How much time, how many of those hours would you spend on each of the 5 aspects of life that you value?
Got you. And so that's how you're figuring out the weight for it, basically.
And that's how you figure out the weight. And it's funny because, it seems like a strange question, but it's actually a very answerable one because it's something we already do. We have time. I view it as our universal currency. We already choose how to spend it, consciously some of the time, subconsciously other times. And so to imagine how we might ideally spend it and what intrinsically feels good, to us, that is, that's something we can actually do. When we do that, right, maybe item number 1 on your list gets 25%, maybe item number 2 gets 20%. You kind of build it out like that. And so you have a relative weighting, right, of these values. And what you've effectively done is you've transformed what are qualitative, subjective values, right, into quantified decision criteria, right? And then the way you would apply that, there's 2 ways you can apply it. It becomes really quite powerful. The first is in making regret-proof decisions. So if I've got 3 options in front of me, I'm making some decision and I have to choose between 3 options, I can score each of those options, let's say out of 10, against each of the things that I value, each of the criteria, right? So maybe I get a 5 out of 10 by choosing this career option on exercise because I'm going to be pretty busy. I'm not going to have a lot of time to do it. Nevertheless, you do that. If you multiply the score times how important that value was to you, and you do that, and you add up each of the columns, you get a number at the bottom of the option. And the number at the bottom of the option, the highest one, is the one that represents or that fits your values best. It's the one that you're likely to feel most fulfilled doing. And the neat thing about it is, given your information at the time, given your values at the time, given your options at the time, you would never go back and choose anything different. This is the best decision you could make, and so it's regret proof. And even if you choose the same thing as you might have intuitively chosen anyways, you now know exactly why you chose it, and you've got peace around that decision. So for that reason, you don't go back and wonder, did I make the decision in the right way?
So
then the last way, sorry, go ahead.
What led you to like you had to do some deep searching in order to find out all this information on how to put this into place, man. Like that's super evasive. Like that's just crazy that you're able to put the structure down. And what's the success rate? Like have you applied this to a lot of different people?
Yeah, so I've served several dozen people now. I'm still getting started, and for different reasons, I have grown primarily organically, right? Because I don't want to engage in the attention economy that I'm trying to solve, if that makes sense. But the success rate is pretty strong. Like if you can think of, well, even just this last week, how much time you spent in a way that I kind of wish I'd spent it better. I kind of wish I'd done something different with that time. Or if you can look back on the last couple of years, right? Or even your lifetime and think about, well, how much of that time do I wish I had spent differently? Right? And zero judgment. You can spend there is nothing inherently wrong with spending your time in any particular way. It's all just a matter of, of how it compares to your own standards of success. But that ends up being usually a really big fraction, a really big percentage of time. So typically people, after I go through that process with them and work through what they care about, and there's certain things that shouldn't be on that list. We can talk about that if you like, but people tell me it's on the order of years, right? I ask them a single question at the end of my time working with them, and that question is, over the course of your lifetime, how much time will you now not regret? because you'll be able to spend it in line with what it is that you value. Spend it in a fulfilling way. Recognize what what distracts you from a fulfilling life for you, and put that aside and kind of remain focused. And so it ends up being an answer that's on the order of years. And so the sum of that so far has been the better part of 80 years now, across the people I've helped. And the reason I'm kind of doing that, we can again go into it if you want, but it's I'm trying to lead a fully given life. I'm trying to give the equivalent of my life expectancy worth of time to other people for in their lives for what it is that they value, by eliminating regret, having them get to know themselves better.
And you figured out basically that that's what you value, is helping other people, and I don't know where I'm going with that really.
Yeah, it's aligned, right? The incentives are aligned. It's intrinsically motivating to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously beneficial for other people to get them to know themselves better and enjoy spending time unapologetically themselves. And so it kind of builds on itself. It's
crazy to think about living a life without regret, though, because I know every single person in this room, and yourself included, Alan, probably have regretted a lot that you've done. Everybody does. So it's crazy to think about living a life without regret or future regrets because you've bettered yourself through this. I still feel like even with that process, though, which also, real quick, side note, that seems so simple. Like, you thought of it like that. Honestly, it does. Like, scoring everything out like that and putting numbers to it and making it quantitative. Like, that seems so simple. Why has nobody done that?
Decisions. Yeah.
It's just crazy that it's taken people a long time to do anything like you're doing right now, even though at the basis it seems like why have we not done this before? But what was I saying? Regret. I still feel like even with that process, though, everybody's still going to make mistakes. I guess mistakes are different than regret, though. It's making a mistake and then learning from it and not having that, I should have done something different, even though it still ended in a mistake.
Exactly. So there are a couple definitions that are really important, I think, to get clear for our own clarity, our own peace of mind. First of all, there is a big difference, and these are entirely separate things, between the quality of the decision you make and the outcome.
Fair enough.
Right? Many times we make decisions that, to the best of our knowledge at that time, is the right decision. But there are a lot of external factors we don't control always, those outcomes. And those outcomes are sometimes not in our favor. Sometimes it doesn't pan out, despite you making the best decision you could. And so, you can be disappointed in the outcome. But if you wouldn't go back to that point in time with the information you had at the time and do anything differently, there's no behavior from yourself that you should regret. And, please don't let that outcome weigh heavily on your self-worth, or let it weigh heavily on your self-image. Whereas sometimes we make poor decisions and we get lucky and there's a good outcome, right? We knew better at the time, or we were being reckless, right? And it still turned out okay. It doesn't mean you made a good decision. It just means you got a good outcome. So there are still things to learn, even if you have good outcomes, if you didn't make the decision in a great way. And so, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I get that. Like, you're basically talking about not being results oriented. Like, the outcome doesn't matter so much as long as you're making the right decision. I used to play a lot of poker, and it's the same kind of thing. There's a lot of numbers in poker. It's statistical. If I know that this is the right move, because 60% of the time I'm going to win the hand, even if I lose a giant pot on that hand, I guarantee you next time if I'm in the same situation, I will make the same move because there's a 60% chance that I win. And I will do that every time, exactly. And you can't be results-oriented, basically. So, I fully understand that.
And with the law of averages and everything, if you're clear on what you care about and you consistently act in a way that is in line with that, or to your point, you know your odds and you're intentional. That's the big thing, is to be intentional with with as many of your actions as you can be. Then it works out in the end, right? You roll the dice enough times, the odds will be exactly where you'd expect them to be, and you are far more likely to have good outcomes if you are clear on what you want and you act in a way that is more likely to drive those, right? No guarantee on any one roll, but in the long term you're going to be far happier than if you sort of relied on luck, or if you relied on changing your strategy in a way that is not in line with what you want. So That's kind of how it comes down to it. So separating outcomes from the decisions we make is a big distinction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people see those poor outcomes and they take it to heart, which is rough because then they can get into some pretty dark places.
Oh no, trust me, it's still hard to lose that $800 pot where I'm like, oh, that wasn't fun at all. This was awful. Why did I do this? Even though, like I said, you go back later and you realize that it was the correct decision.
Yep, exactly. And there's nothing wrong, right, with feeling the weight of that outcome.
Yeah.
Gosh, we lose people. I mean, in our lives too. But the main thing is to not let it affect our future actions, right? To forgive ourselves, to move on, or whatever the case might be, right? Or to realize that we did the right thing.
Do you see, is there a common denominator with all the people that you've dealt with so far where there's just one overlying issue with the same person? Within the process that you are applying to all these people, what seems to be the common thing that is the biggest struggle for people to jump on train with what you're trying to have happen?
So I think the biggest struggle I've consistently seen is at the very beginning when I ask them, what do you value? It's just not a question they've ever been asked. And I find it sad. I find it sad that it hasn't been in anyone's best interest, whether from their parents to their teachers, to ask them what they want as individuals, right? So much of parenting, I'm a parent now, and a lot of it is maybe it's instilling our own values, maybe it's trying to teach them what's right from wrong, and there's certain things that you believe to always be true, but there are some parents as well that kind of restrict their kids' ability to grow up as individuals, or to have certain expectations for their children that are driven out of their parents' insecurities, as opposed to the child actually wanting that in their life. That can create a lot of resentment, so on and so forth. So I just find it sad that we're never asked those questions when we're young. And part of the reason probably is because as parents and adults and teachers so far, maybe we don't know yet how to deal with those answers. What if the child tells us the answers? Okay, how do we tell them how to apply it? That process in any sort of teachable way, I just don't think has existed yet. So I would love to have, that a relatively simple process become more widely known, become more widely used, and then ideally the adults that are around can show that they truly care about everyone else in their life by helping that person be and do themselves, as opposed to be and do what we want. And the interesting thing is that there's a strong argument that comes out of my work that in doing that, and in serving other people and serving other people's interests, that's actually what is in our own selfish best interest long term. Those are simultaneously the same behaviors. That if we take advantage of people in the short term, we pay for it in the long term. We don't succeed nearly to the degree we want to because of reputation damage and stuff. Mm-hmm. So, so much of it is treating other people right, because in the long run, too much to your point earlier with odds and the like, that will turn out in our favor.
Yeah, and we've never done that. So how could they know the outcome of what it could be, right? And the betterment of humanity to me seems better than what we're currently doing right now, because what we're doing right now is not working. And I think people like you putting into place things like this that we've never really tried before. And Johnny, like you said, it's so simple and it seems so simple. Why hasn't it been done yet? Well, thank you, Alan, for doing it, man. That's badass, man. That's awesome. And we need to do more of it so we can progress. 7 billion people on this earth?
7 billion? It's probably going to be 8 soon. I mean, gosh. It's exponential, right?
Right.
That's, everything, and change is exponential, right, with everything we do, whether it be technology or population growth or basically anything, human component.
So I posted a little bit on Instagram saying that we're going to talk about technology, and I don't think we've really hit that, but I'm completely okay with the fact of what we've hit so far. In what aspect do you see the most, what do you see technology doing to hinder us as humanity?
Right.
So the negatives, the downsides.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say the single biggest trend that technology is, the single biggest impact, and I guess it is a trend that the technology is having on us, is diverting our attention away from that which we that which we value as individuals. For those, I guess, not familiar with the attention economy, I think a brief background on what that is will kind of illuminate this, so that we're aware of it, that we see it, that we can, act in a way that, that defends ourselves against it. But so the attention economy is it's a modern effect of there being more content to consume than attention available to consume it. So if you think back to the 60s, right, there's TV for the first time, only a handful of shows, handful of channels. Everybody can watch everything, right? There's no shortage of attention. There's shortage of content. But with technology and mobile devices and the like, everybody can take a selfie, take a video, post it, and there are orders of magnitude, right? Thousands, millions, right? More times more content than we could ever consume in a lifetime. And so what that means is our attention is now what is in short supply. Now, because we all trade on attention, we need our people's attention to sell them anything, to work with them, even to give people things. We often need their attention. What it becomes scarce, but is also valuable, it gets extremely expensive. And so in the digital marketing space and the like, the attention economy is going to really ramp up the cost of buying attention, which is effectively marketing and advertising. It's going to ramp up that cost significantly. And it's going to have two big effects. The first is, unfortunately, it's going to make competitors out of just about every industry, right? So I could be a shoe salesperson, and I'm now competing with Coca-Cola, not because they sell shoes, but because I need people's attention to sell my shoes. Meanwhile, Coca-Cola, with its massive marketing budget, can afford the high, advertising rates where people's attention actually is, and buy up that real estate effectively, and I can't afford, right, to buy the attention that would be necessary or that would be financially viable to sell my shoes, right? So as a small to medium-sized business owner, you really start to struggle. What's going to happen is obviously the larger companies with the larger marketing budgets are the ones that are going to be able to survive and pay those rates. The industry collapses a little bit. You get more oligopolies, so fewer large players, which is it gives us less choice as consumers, and that's ultimately usually a bad thing from an economics perspective. The other rough thing is that because attention is increasingly valuable and also scarce, increasingly better methods and technologies will be used to get and keep our attention, right? Addictive technologies as well.
Oh yeah, I feel like we're already at a bad point there. Sorry, not to interrupt. That was it. That was the only statement I was going to make, because I feel like we're already at a point where it's really bad, and it's only going to get worse.
It's really bad, and I'm projecting here, but like you said, technology and a lot of these other things are exponential. I believe this is going to get so much worse before it gets better, and we can already see the attention economy having an effect on I think the psychological well-being of our population. Certainly young people who have been sort of born into this and don't necessarily know what life is like without access to these things, or before they've developed sort of perhaps the mental strength to know where they are and to be happy with where they are and to have the self-confidence outside of all of these external influences and judgments. But nevertheless, and I'm not demonizing technology. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with that technology, but there's the lack of, I think, self-awareness and that we have because we've just not grown up being asked those questions. So I think technologically, we are using it more often than not to get and keep people's attention for reasons that benefit us. And while some of those also benefit the consumer, absolutely, I don't think all do, or that always the most moral methods or ethical methods are being used to get people's attention. I think a lot of attention is being purchased, is being bought through that advertising, as opposed to being earned, right? And so technically, that's kind of where I want to go. Is I want to earn all the attention that I ever have and never pay for marketing. I know it's from a business standpoint, it's like,
yeah, that's going to be impossible in today's day and age. Marketing sells, advertising sells so well.
It does, right? And I'm hoping, long term that is a competitive advantage. That, hey, in a space in 5 to 10 years where everyone realizes their attention is constantly being purchased and they have this bad taste in their mouth about it, I'm maybe the one person, or maybe one of a few, that has never purchased attention, that, and you know, has tried to earn it by legitimately helping other people, figuring out where they're at, and empathizing with what they want and giving them what they want, and then, you know, reputation ideally growing from there. So, but to answer your question in sort of a roundabout way, I think technology, the most severe thing it's doing to us right now is taking our attention away from that which we intrinsically want in our lives, as opposed to figuring out what that is first and supporting, which I think would frankly be in most organizations' best interest, is sort of the empathy play.
Fair enough. And just to bring back a little bit, the strangest thing to me is the fact that how exponentially technology has grown since the early 1900s into the 2000s, and how we grow with it. And like you said, I mean, I don't think that anyone's thinking about the implications of what technology has on humanity in general. We just grow with it, and we just allow it to happen, and we allow these corporate oligarchies, like you said, to just kind of control it and maintain it. I'm with you, Alan. I'm with you in the aspect that I hope that people like to call them woke, you know, woke people and stuff like that. I hope that more and more of those people start becoming...
I hate that term.
Well, not woke, but just...
I hate that term. I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
I just hope that there are more people that are realizing what's truly going on in the world that we live in, and they do seek that alternative media, and they do seek those other people who have, you know, fruitful information for everyone. I mean, that's where I'm at. I just think that as we've grown with technology, we haven't looked at the implications of what it really has.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, one litmus test that people can think of to kind of identify whether something's in their best interest or not, or whether someone else has their best interest in mind, is, has this person asked me what I want?
Right?
I don't think I was ever asked
that.
I was never asked that in school, ever. Not once.
Right? Right, yeah. Like, it's like, well, what do you want to learn? Why do you want to learn it? Or from a sales perspective, if they want to understand truly where you're at and develop a relationship before assessing whether what they offer, product or service, is the right fit for you, like, that's somebody who's actually legitimately trying to help you. And I think most sales managers and sales professionals realize that that's ultimately what they're doing, is they're assessing fit, and that they're really trying to help other people. But if somebody starts with a pitch, it's almost guaranteed not to be in your best interest, because they don't know what you're interested in. And hopefully, right, the people that come into your life that legitimately, genuinely want to help and ask you what it is that you care about, just that they can see whether collaborating makes sense. Hopefully you've got an answer for them.
That's
right?
Oh, go ahead.
I was just that's what comes back to sort of the self-awareness piece, and just you have to start there to just know what's relevant to you in your life.
I was just going to say that's a valid point. Like, simply put, thinking if I were to go buy a car, I would rather buy it from the person who asked me what kind of car I want than someone who is like, hey, check out this brand new blah, 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 blah with all these features, and they really try to sell me on getting that, as opposed to walking onto the lot and then being like, what are you looking for? What do you need it for? Let's figure out what fits best for you. I'm using a terrible example because we all hate car salesmen, but...
Yeah.
And to your point, right, like another bit of evidence is, like, when somebody who could push a product or a service on you, right, shows you or tells you or sort of proves to you how genuine they are by pointing to one of the more premium services and say, you know what, you don't need this. It doesn't fit your needs, right? If they go against what is in their best interest, it's usually pretty good evidence that they are looking out for your interests. So, look for those types of plays of people actually scratching options off of the table almost for you that would have given them a higher commission or whatever, because they realize it's, in the long term, you might make a return or you might not have a great experience. It'll affect the brand, and, they're doing right by you. So these are just different things to look out for in terms of it being relevant to living the life you want.
I don't know how many times I've actually encountered people like that in my daily life. Honestly, I mean, it's very slim to none. Being a restaurant manager, I've actually. It's funny that you say that. I apply it to anyone that I hire. Like, if it makes more sense for them to work at another location for the same company that's closer to where they are, I'm all for it, man. Like, I don't need it for the benefit because I'm short staffed. I mean, I just to your point, like, I don't see that very often at all in the lives.
I mean, once in a while you run into it, but it's rare.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you notice it because the bar is low.
Yeah,
when it
very
comes to
true.
that kind of stuff. But from a restaurant perspective, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't understand that context as well as you do by any means. But if someone doesn't want to be there, but rather would prefer to be somewhere else, then I mean that's going to show up in their customer service. That's going to show up in how reliable they are. That's going to show up in how good of a teammate they are. It's going to show up in whether they put in extra effort. And correct me if I'm wrong, but like long term, having somebody who is toxic in the workplace, that could probably be more damaging than being short staffed.
Oh yeah,
right? In some ways.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It's a balance.
So,
it's
I
a
mean,
balance game. It depends. Sometimes
Yeah.
you're so short you rely on hands just for
Right.
even if there's a little bit of toxicity there. But in general, you're 100% correct. I mean, you don't want.
So have you applied any of your I mean, like obviously you applied this on yourself, and has it worked for you?
Yes, it has in large ways. So, couple of practices I adopted early 2018. I started tracking my time and attention, or my time rather, and scheduling my time 100%. So 365 days a year, 24/7. In August of last year, 2018, I actually switched that over to tracking my attention, which is slightly different than just tracking my how I spent my time or my behaviors. So I've been doing that for over a year. It's kind of a lifestyle thing now. But the very act of tracking what it is that has our attention, or tracking what it is that we spend our time on, the very act of doing that actually changes it, actually improves it. So, I highly recommend that if anybody wants to spend their time better, it's not hard. Just start with tracking it, and by doing that, by making it a conscious choice to write down when you started doing something new, right? That's bringing it to the conscious mind. You're likely to make better choices, right? And you can always do something more sophisticated later, but so that alone has made a significant difference for me. The way that I've defined how, I guess, what I value has actually been in terms of people that I value. And so I have myself, I have my wife, I have my kids, I have my extended family, I have the general public, right? In sort of rough categories, and have my weights on like how much time do I want to spend on making sure I'm okay, making sure my wife is okay, making sure my kids are okay, making sure the people around me are okay, right? Or even better, good, right? Or happy, and serving them in some way. So I think doing that has helped me be much more intentional with, okay, well, am I spending enough time with my wife? Am I spending enough time with my extended family, like my brother or whatever? Am I spending enough time serving my community? Am I spending enough time making sure that I'm good so I can continue to sustainably serve others? That has been transformative, honestly, for me. And the nice thing about tracking my time and attention is that I can then compare how much time I'm spending on the people in my life and the general public, right, versus how much time I want to, and I can make changes. So it's been good, and like it's a growth process. I'm not perfect. I'm not done. This will never be done. My values will change. That I'll never be able to hit a week on the dot. You just kind of try to hover around those ratios and not ignore any people you care about for too long, and you lead a far better life, or at least I have than I had before, and I had a good life before. But it's crazy what you can do when you try to establish a few habits, and just being more conscious about it.
At what point in your life did you realize that that you wanted to do this? Like that you wanted to find out what time really meant? Like when did you realize that? Was it like something early on in life that you had realized, or was it just later on as you developed?
So I guess, I've always enjoyed the concept of being efficient, right? And being effective. And
you're an engineer, I would hope.
I would hope so, right? And so that did drive my professional interests, right? So I guess I've always kind of intrinsically been motivated by that. Do things properly, do them well. And I guess late 2016, early 2017 was sort of when I had about a 4-month bout with depression, to be honest. And that was sort of this existential crisis thing. It was shortly after I'd started raising my kids full time. And it had nothing to do with that, because I was very happy for that opportunity, but it was really around this conversation in my head. What am I going to do next? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? And not knowing, what really drove me. But then it was in developing some of those ideas through 2017, and then ultimately at the beginning of 2018, looking back on my life and estimating that 81% of my life since birth had been scheduled. As of the beginning of 2018, 19% had not, which was this 55,203 hours, or 6.3 years. And that was time that I'd looked at as time that I'd not spent intentionally, time that I regretted because I didn't have a plan for how I wanted to spend it. So the better part of 2018 up to November was spent trying to eliminate that deficit, trying to create 6.3 years worth of time in other people's lives. Was able to cross that threshold November 2018, and now I've begun to create a surplus. I'm at 71 or 72 years of a surplus, and so the total is about 77, 78. And so, yeah, I guess it was always been intrinsically motivating to me, but then a lot of it crystallized as I started reflecting back on, well, have I lived the best life I could have? The answer was no, right? Like I have all these regrets. And a relatively good life otherwise, but nevertheless, opportunity to improve. And because I can't go back in time and change anything, what can I do to make up for it? And I can make up for it by helping other people not make their own mistakes. When they could have been avoided. Right.
Let me ask. You brought up. You're talking about how you were super motivated to do this and whatnot, and motivation is actually part of my next question that I was going to ask.
Yeah,
how
sure.
I want to get the terminology here correct, by the way. Do you consider what you're doing right now, is it a program? Like, what would you call, like, if, I don't know how to word it. Like, if someone were to go through your program, that's the word I want to say. I don't know if that's correct. I don't want to insult it,
No, I mean, honestly, it can take so many different terms. So, people have asked, am I a coach, right? I try to usually steer away from labeling myself as a coach, primarily because coaches tend to ask questions, I think, at least in a professional development sense, they tend to strictly ask questions. I consider myself more of a consultant because I've tried to develop some of these ideas and solutions so yeah, absolutely. I'm asking a ton of questions. I want to know where people are at, right? I want to get to know them before I can help them. But then I offer solutions, right, that help us then, take who they are and do it better, according to their standards, right? So I would say it's kind of like it's a consulting offering, but the funny thing is because we're all so different, right? Our experiences are different. What we regret is different. Our values are different. And so, to serve anyone, I needed to develop this sort of underlying this understanding of who we were, which is sentient process network theory. But the service that I offer, or the help that I offer, has to be custom, right, to every single person, which is a hard scaling problem, and that's the problem I have to take on. But the way I kind of look at it is this: it's like, well, the goal is to help you lead a more fulfilling life, whether that's organizationally or as an individual or both. And there's some underlying principles in these kind of always work. The specifics differ. And in some of those specifics, yes, my professional background allows me to help you with that, certainly in an organizational sense. But if the specifics of getting there are outside of my areas of expertise, then I've got a number of other people I've networked with that I've developed strong, trusting relationships with that have strengths that in areas that I don't. Okay? I've got my strengths, I have my weaknesses. So in cases like that, I'll connect people with others that do have those services or offerings, whatever, or who are just great people with good skill sets to have them help whoever it is. And so the solutions are custom, and so sometimes it might look like a program, sometimes it might look like a coaching session, sometimes it might be consulting for an organization, sometimes it might be helping people apply some sort of technology, again, either in an organization or individually. But so the what differs every single time it's custom, but the why is always the same, and the outcome is always the same. You're going to feel better doing what you want to do.
Yeah. I just didn't want to insult it by calling it like a program or something, because it's. I mean, honestly, from you explaining it right now, I see why you would call it so many different names: consulting, coaching, program, so on and so forth. Because you've got the end goal, and it sounds like you've got a first couple of solid steps that don't really change. Step 1 and 2 don't change for most people, but like you said, it's a custom experience where after that, you have so many different ways it could go. real quick though, what I wanted to ask earlier about the motivation side of it, I was going to ask in your consulting coaching program, whatever you want to call it. Like you said, it's different for everybody. Like that would be my big thing, is that even after if you talk to someone and you figure out their values, you figure out how they weight their values, you figure out how they can make decisions the correct way and stuff. My big issue, and I'm sure I don't stand alone on this, a lot of people would have this problem, is a lack of motivation. Call that's just a character flaw on my part. Call it procrastination or whatever. That would be my issue, because I mean, just as I'm not even going to think of something that I super value anyways, but just a small example, like I remember back in high school and early college, like I really like lifting weights. It's not something I hugely value or whatever, but I enjoy doing it. And now, obviously, insert out of shape joke here. It's not something I'm doing, and I can think to myself, hey, this is something I would really like to do, that I enjoy doing, and would be better for me. Yet I don't know if it's the ease of use or lack of motivation or getting distracted, where something else always takes my attention, whether it be going and hanging out with friends, which is something I also value, or something I don't value as much, like drinking and playing video games. I'll do that instead of going to lift weights. So I guess my general question is, in your thing, is there a motivation aspect to help people with that part?
So I'd say there is, but it's sort of intrinsic. So the idea is, let me just make sure I approach this in the right way. So I want to make a distinction, I guess, between being productive and being intentional.
Okay.
Right? I don't advocate for 100% productivity, right? That we are always working on something that makes us better, or that makes, somebody else's life better, or what have you. The aim is to always be intentional. And so we need our downtime. We need time to shut off our brains, whatever the case might be, depending on the stressors in the rest of our lives. And that could take the form of like anything. And there's nothing wrong with video games. There's nothing wrong with a couple drinks. There's nothing wrong with, all these different ways that we spend our time to relax, to have fun, whatever, right? Like we need that to recharge. The only issue it becomes when we do that more than we would like, right? And there are certain addictive elements to just different things in our life, and obviously some of it's been designed that way just to keep us engaged. But the goal is not 100% productivity, right? So if you know that you need some downtime tonight because it's been a rough week, and you want to spend 3 hours playing video games, cool. Spend 3 hours playing video games, like cool, it's good for you. At 3 hours, go to bed like you said you would, kind of thing, right? And it's about really achieving the right balance, right, for you, and it's going to be among these other things. So as far as the motivation piece is concerned, I think it's helpful to go through the exercise to figure out what you care about, and recognizing that lifting weights, that's a really high energy exercise. Like, it's a really high energy output activity. So sometimes when compared with the other things in your life that are really important, right, maybe you place those up there first, and realistically speaking, you don't have the energy to go do that, right, or to do that effectively. Or if you went to go lift weights, that would start to sacrifice, or that would start to affect the other parts of your life that you want to do well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe how well you rest, or maybe the amount of time that you've got with your friends, or what the case might be. Then that's okay, right? Like that is it's okay to be managing your energy levels and to have to make certain decisions like that. We only have a finite amount of time. There's a ton of things we would be better off doing. Let's put it this way. There are a ton of things that are good for us and bad, right? We can't even do all the things that are good for us, right? So we can't be hard on ourselves for not doing all of the things that are good for us.
Yeah.
Right? We have to choose what good things for us we want to do, and what bad things for us we want to do too, because balance is fine. But just be, I guess, at peace with what it is that we're choosing to do. And when you go through the exercise of what do you want to do, the motivation piece actually takes care of itself, right? So if you're not motivated to do it, you don't.
It's not something you actually want to do. I that kind of makes sense. You're gonna if you find the things you truly value, then the motivation will come inherently. I get that. I was just curious. That was just the general.
Precisely. Yeah, and I think a lot of us don't necessarily engage in some of the productive behaviors that other people think would be good for us, but those are other people's opinions, and there's a certain amount. I truly believe we need to, in some ways, live inside our own heads of just valuing our opinions of ourselves more than other people's opinions of us, and being okay with somebody else hitting the gym because that's what they want to do, and us spending time with family because that's what we want to do, and that matters more to us, and to be at peace with that decision. So I think we overcome the motivation issue by finding stuff you're intrinsically motivated to do, realizing the stuff that we're not intrinsically motivated to do we actually don't value, to be at peace with that, and just you're moving forward.
I think, when it comes to motivation, and I have a very hard time finding motivation in my life, and just having some sort of option to go to and looking in some sort of, like I don't want to call it a program. You know what I'm saying? Finding something out there, like whenever I'm on YouTube and I'm scrolling through videos and I'm looking for something, like how do you find motivation? How do you find the will to do what you want to do in life and what you love? Fulfillment, like you talk about. It's hard. It's extremely hard. But you're searching for those answers as opposed to actually doing something about it. And having steps in place to do something about it is awesome. And it's just a matter of doing those steps and actually putting forth the effort of wanting to find that fulfillment. I mean, honestly, I think that's what it comes down to. And I think it'll happen for each person at a different time in their lives when and how they want to do that,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love the idea of what you're doing. And this is
same.
completely not what I thought this was going to be, by the way.
Same, yeah.
And when I initially, because I watched a little bit of your, Paul sent it to me, it was one of your, like a lecture at BCU, something like that.
Yep.
And I watched a little bit of it. I'm, guilty. I did not watch very much because I was for whatever reason.
You have other priorities, and that's okay.
But
for sure, thank you for looking at some of it.
Initially, talking to Paul and stuff, I came in expecting us to talk about computer science and AI and virtual intelligence and all this different stuff. So this completely caught me off guard that it was this instead. But I'm happy with it because that's a great goal.
Yeah,
honestly.
Well, I appreciate that. And, as far as artificial intelligence and a lot of these technologies are concerned, what they can do is amazing. And I feel like the way that we're going to be able to best apply them is not in making those technologies necessarily better, but it's in knowing which ones we want to apply and why.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think we're going to have a better experience with those technologies by applying the right ones at the right times for the right reasons than necessarily the improvements or trying to improve which ones are out there. For goodness sakes, I mean, so many of us don't even use the basic technologies in a way that is effective. And so it's funny from a corporate perspective, people latch on to AI and some of these emerging technologies and we need to have that because it's the next best thing. But
when they don't know how to use it.
The fundamentals of their business are just not even in line yet. You guys can tap into way more value by just doing your existing stuff properly, and level up to that when you're ready.
No, I think that's. I think that's an issue you see with a lot of. I've never heard it put in those terms, but that's a perfect example. You see that with a lot of people or companies or whatever jumping to the next big thing because it is the next big thing, and not because it is something that will benefit them.
Yeah, or that they're ready for.
Yeah,
right.
Either or.
If they've got a poor working culture because their leadership sucks, right, or their management sucks as a general rule, or maybe they have a couple of toxic individuals in the organization that are high performers. They just haven't dealt with that reality. It doesn't matter necessarily how good the technology they put in place is. Those people aren't going to pull in the right direction, or they're going to infight with each other, and you're not going to see, at the very least, the potential return that you might have with that technology if you don't have those fundamentals, or if you don't already have a good working culture. So I think, the best thing we can do technology-wise, certainly as it emerges, is to be sure of why we're adopting it.
Do you see any...
And whether we're ready.
Do it purposefully, basically.
But do you see any issue with where we're at already? And do you think we're too far down the rabbit hole to really change how we are technological. You know what I'm saying? Like, have we gone too far? Can we change it, or is
So I think we can, but it is not an effort. It's not going to be through an effort of one person. I think people are becoming more aware of the impact that technology is having on their lives, both good and bad. I think it's becoming a discussion point. I think there are certain platforms and certain companies that are trying to lead in making technology better for humanity and changing their designs in certain ways. I think there remains obviously huge areas for improvement, but the fact that it's a conversation, I think, and honestly, I think to a degree, this problem is going to have to get pretty bad for people to realize it's a problem. Unfortunately, the attention economy and a variety of other things, it is not in most people's best interest to tell you that the attention economy is a thing. Because as soon as you know it's a thing, you start looking at, their offering and how they approach you and all that kind of thing, as you start questioning whether it's relevant to you, as opposed to just accepting a pitch that it is relevant or that it is going to benefit you, in your life. So unfortunately, it's just not in most people's best interest to tell you it's a thing. And I hope that people quickly realize that the attention economy is here. It's already bad, that it is going to get worse. I guess I'm trying to share the idea that it exists, right? And at a time before it gets really bad, such that a lot of people can do that internal work and can get off that train, get out of that arms race, that is the attention economy, and do what's right for them. And from an organization standpoint, start to truly serve people well. Start to create like excellent customer or client experiences. Deliver on what the client and customer actually want and actually need. Because when you do that, that's when they tell other people. When you do that, that's what drives your brand. That's what creates great reputation in the marketplace. And your reputation, your word of mouth, your brand, that is what trades exceptionally well when the attention economy really heats up, right? When people get sick and tired of having their attention purchased and they stop paying attention to anything, if you, in your space, are the company they think of for products or services in that area, you've won, right? So businesses have to start now in trading and building their brand by delivering exceptional products and services.
Is the attention economy as bad in Canada as it is in the United States?
Yeah, we're pretty similar in that regard,
Okay.
culturally. I mean, we have some cultural differences, but our issues with technology and the like are just deep seated.
I just imagined like Canada as like a third world country for a second. Like they're so different. Like you got Canada where bombs are being dropped left and right, people dying on the streets, and then you've got America where we're just USA where we're so
Yeah, no, we're not all that different.
No.
We're brothers and sisters. I view that across the world, really, and we have so much, regardless of ethnic backgrounds and the like. We are far more similar than we are different.
It's so in general though. It sounds like you're saying that, and I think we all agree here. It's unfortunately going to get worse before it gets better. The only thing I'm worried about is that hopefully we see that better. Like hopefully. Once again, not to sound cynical, I don't have a lack in faith in humanity. I actually have a lot of faith in humanity, and I hope that one day we are able to get bad enough for us to realize there's a problem and flip that switch before it's too late. Because right now, Paul, to answer your question earlier, I don't think it's too late yet, but it will get pretty bad before it. I just don't want to see us reach the point of like the movie WALL-E, where you've got everybody looking at a screen, floating around, no interaction, nobody doing what is either A, best for them or best for other people, just feeding into like an endless stream of marketing and instant gratification. And I hope that humanity is good enough as a whole to where when we get close to that point, we realize it and break off from that before it happens.
I do too. And I mean, I've seen a few of your clips, and I understand in some cases you guys like getting philosophical. Do you mind if I take a quick philosophical?
Oh yeah, let's go
for it.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a philosopher, Alan Watts. He's passed away, several decades ago, I think it was, and one of his ideas that I really liked, and I'm probably gonna not make the say the quote properly here, but it was that we are how the universe experiences itself, right? Or we are how the universe knows itself, and it's this idea that if we didn't exist, maybe the universe would exist, but we couldn't be sure of it, right? The only reason we realize anything exists, call it reality, is that we experience it, right? Or that everything we know is through our own experience. And so it's this idea that if we weren't around to experience it, it might not exist. Now, if you believe that, reality, the universe, whatever, is a worthwhile thing to have, then you value us being around. And certainly yourself. What's kind of neat about that is that that this is a really good argument for why everyone is intrinsically valuable, right? It's that there's some sliver of the universe and the things that only they will experience, or the combinations of things that only they will experience, that if they weren't around, that wouldn't exist. And so, you are intrinsically valuable because there's things that only you will get to experience, and then you get to share that with other people. We benefit by hearing your perspective because we would never have seen that ourselves. So that's one. But the other cool thing about it is, like, if we cease to exist, then we don't know if anything else exists. And I personally like the universe. I think it's crazy. We don't understand nearly as much as we'd like to about it. But if we don't serve each other, right? If we don't, help each other achieve what it is that the other person wants, right? Or work together to achieve some of these shared goals, we're just not going to be around forever, right? Or at the very least, not with the same quality of life, not with the same information, not with the same growth, not with the same security, not with the same risk profile, whatever, as we might have. And so, a lot of the larger ramifications or ramifications at scale of my work is that when you behave virtuously, and there's sort of these virtues and vices within the work that are sort of cross-culturally recognized, you increase the amount of joy and trust in other people's lives, and that means they want to work with you. That means they want to do more, work on shared goals with you. When you do that, we ultimately get more of those mutually beneficial things done, and we lead a better quality of life. We minimize the chance that we're going to extinguish ourselves as a species, so on and so forth. So, in the long term, I'm just hoping that people realize that it is in their own selfish best interests to serve other people, and that in doing that, we are collectively better off. We continue to exist. The universe continues to exist. That's about as philosophical as it gets.
I like that.
And
that's a good point.
There's a lot of traditional wisdoms that kind of fit into that. So I'm not pointing out, I think, necessarily anything super new or novel, but
just
what
the way
blows
you
my
put
mind.
it.
Yeah. Sorry. What blows my mind is just that people in this day and age still treat each other poorly, or with hate, or with the like. And it's not just unkind, but it's also unwise. In the long term, that person's just not going to be any better off.
We've had a gentleman on, and two of the books he's written are here on my table. Mike Anderson, and it goes back to tribalism for some reason. I don't know why, but that's a lot of the reasons why you get some of that hate, and why that's just kind of where I get it from.
Yeah, no, that's something we need to move past from, though, because I agree with the whole. You can, and this goes back to instant gratification and everything else. You can. I mean, you could even take this down to a level of like middle school and high school bullying. You can put someone else lower than you. You can you can step on someone to climb higher yourself, but that's a temporary thing that only assists you, as to where there's no downside to helping everybody else achieve goals, and then you all move up. I mean, that's a very temporary, and I mean temporary in the sense of this sounds messed up, but it could help someone for their entire life. Like, they could step on people their entire life, and maybe that works for them their entire life. But when I say temporary, I'm not talking about a lifetime. I'm talking about 1,000 years. 90 years is nothing in
Right.
1,000 years, so I don't know where I was going with that. I lost my own train of thought on that, but
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with helping
absolutely.
everybody at the
So,
same time.
A lot of it comes down to those traditional wisdoms of kindness and the like, but it's, these are, even mathematically, this is why, right? It's like, I'm tired of people treating each other poorly. To the tribalism point, so there's some significance to the idea of us being sentient, right? This idea that we value things subjectively in life, whether that is, pleasure or pain or suffering, right? And that we act ideally according to that. Some of the complex animals in the animal kingdom have that. Super simple animals like bugs don't. But that I see us are being sentient, right? As that is the tribe, that is the biggest tribe we belong to, and that hopefully our mindset around, culturally can shift from being part of whatever the smallest tribe we belong to is, to what is, what's the biggest tribe I belong to. And I think in that we all share. And when we know that we all share this capacity for pleasure, pain, and suffering, that we are more likely to act in a way that respects that. I think, and recognize that we have so much, more in common than we have different. So that's sort of the last I wanted to say, really, on the philosophical side of it. But it just, even if you need a philosophical argument, that's it. And it ends up, from a practical point of view, helping yourself in no uncertain terms long term.
That's
Yeah.
But I was just saying, it might be. I don't want to. I want to keep going with this conversation because it's great. But
Yeah, no, I mean that. Whenever I sit back and listen to the podcast, I'm excited to listen to. To all of it, and we are towards the top of the hour. Alan,
for sure.
we had a great time, man, and love to have you back on if you're more than willing to. Do another podcast and just talk about anything and everything. Jesse's just been a little tired tonight. Sorry.
he's had a day. He's had a day.
Yeah, no, it's not me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Chiefs.
No worries.
The Chiefs Patriots game got the best of them. So
Oh no.
yeah, we're
tribalism.
yeah, we're hardcore Chiefs fans. Exactly. Yes. So we enjoyed watching the Chiefs beat the Patriots tonight. But normally Jesse interjects a lot.
Yeah.
So
You guys would have got off on the Alan Watts thing together. Jesse's all about the Alan Watts.
Yes,
I
he is.
need to apparently listen to Alan Watts because only two people I've heard talk about him, but that's two people now. So
beautiful talker.
I was gonna say, is there any closing, any final point you wanted to kind of, if you were to have to give people, and also speak for us again, where people can find you, website, yada yada yada. We'll obviously put all that in the description as well. But
Right.
Sure. Yeah. I guess two core things I've come to realize that I think are really transformational. At least they have been in my life, and I hope they are for other people. First of all, that fulfillment is our end game, and that's sort of how we emotionally feel with how we are spending our time. The reason I know that is because when somebody asks you the question, well, why are you doing this? Right? Well, I'm doing it to make more money. Well, why are you making more money? Well, to live a more comfortable life. Well, why do you want to live a more comfortable life? So I can be happier. Right? When you ultimately get back down to some emotional answer, there is no more why. That's where the questions of why stop. So fulfillment and how we feel and how other people feel is the end game. So that's really what we're maximizing at any one point in time, and everything else is really just a means to those ends. And the other thing is that time is our universal currency. Money, it buys everything that money can and more. It can buy things like relationships. It can buy things like self-esteem. You spend enough time on something and you can get it. And so, it's important that I think that we give it the importance it deserves, the respect it deserves. Please be intentional with how it is that you spend your time. Only you get to decide what that is and what balance is right for you. Don't let anybody else dictate what that should be for you. But please do decide it for yourself. Those are the only two things I guess I'd leave people with. Thanks. I guess the last piece is just how people can find me. So around different social media platforms and the like. So it's under Sentient Future, SENTIENT FUTURE. So that's on any platform. And I'm on there primarily to earn your attention and to create content that is worth consuming in terms of it being worth your time. but whether that's YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or I have a podcast as well, and yeah, I just I love to connect with anybody, and for the most part, I offer free consultations to start for people to just help them define and weight what it is that they value. That tends to have a transformative effect on their life, and then if people seek to then apply it or continue using it or want support on an ongoing basis, I mean that's when we start having conversations with how that looks for them, because again it's custom to their needs and their wants every single time. So yeah, but you can find me at Sentient Future, and yeah, I'd love to help you in any way I can.
Cool.
Sentient Future. Jesus, I can't talk. Sentient Future. Check it out, peoples.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Alan's going to get out of here. Thank you again for joining Talk Junkies, man. Look forward to having you on the show again, and best of wishes and best of luck to you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul and Jesse. It's been really, really fun.
I'm Johnny, by the way.
Yeah, and Johnny.
That
yeah,
one's-
sorry.
I'm here too.
Rock on, man. Well, you have a
All right.
fantastic night, man. We'll see you later.
Thanks, Alan.
Likewise. Yeah, take care, guys. Thanks.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Alan Funston. I hope I pronounced his last name right. Joining the podcast here at Talk Junkies. Hit that like button. Share this video if you feel like it had some nice and good information for you to listen to. Share it to all your friends and family. And anyone that you have access to, just share it. Whatever social media platform you have. Hit the like button. Hit the bell notification to all our junkies out there.
Stay fly and ring the bell. Sound